5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Steven, keep all of this. Keep all my counting. People need to learn how to count. Anyway, I don't think we got canceled last week, Steven, for what we said about the women photographers or the Jewish baseball team. I don't think... You know what, Steven? Come to think of it, I did get a text from the rabbi. Hello, Jared, what are you doing? How are you going to do this to the Jews?
Not touching that.
You're a Jew. You're a Jew yourself. Aha. No, Steven, that's not for you.
You sounded like the Count from Sesame Street. Ah,
the Count Dracula.
Or what's his name from? What is it? Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, when he's singing the song, the Dracula guy?
Yeah.
Sad Dracula. I'm sad. I'm so upset. She's leaving me. Good movie. Speaking of good movies, you can text us at 313-710-9729. That's our Texty McTexterston line, where you can get wished a happy birthday by me when it's your birthday. Because I want to tell you to eat cake. Because I love cake. I once wanted to type like eat cake or don't if you like kale, but kale and cake have different letters at the beginning, which makes no sense, Steven. Why would one have a C?
Kale, cake. Is it a hard C?
Cake. K-A-K-E. This is what's wrong with the English language.
The English language is an interesting thing.
It is. I just wish it was a hawk, a big hawk.
A big black hawk.
A big black hawk from your Instagram story. That was very good, Steven. Thank you for sharing that. Well, here we are back with another episode. This is number, if I had to guess and look at my notes, it says 22.
Yes.
That's 22 weeks, Steven. That's almost a half a year.
Wow, we've been on fire.
I don't know how that even happens. It's just like the weeks just keep ticking by. And tick-tock keeps ticking and talking the clock, and we keep rocking.
I mean, luckily there's stuff to talk about too, thankfully, between gear, which we'll get to later today, and just photo news in general, and just shooting the shit.
I like shooting the shit, as you know.
Yeah, you do.
I do. I don't want to get canceled, but if we didn't get canceled after last week, Steven, who's going to cancel us, by the way?
I mean, it's called RAWtalk. I feel like we're kind of covered.
I think we would have to cancel ourselves.
How do you do that?
Oh my God. I forgot to mention something last week about the baseball game.
What?
I'm there at third base side shooting photos, and I look back behind me because I hear, "Hey, Jared."
And who is it?
I'm like, Joe, you don't have a microphone. Don't talk to me, Joe.
This is Joe from RAWtalk years back.
Actual Joe from
man.
RAWtalk. And I'm like, you don't have a microphone.
We kind of considered him an intern, didn't we? Joe, kind of.
Did I pay him?
You definitely paid him.
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, no, he got paid. I mean, he was an intern.
I'm saying you could be a paid intern.
I don't remember why he was working with us. Where did we find Joe?
He basically replaced Sutter in terms of just literally resetting the cameras, because at the time we're still using DSLRs and that 30-minute record limit. And
no, just 20 minutes. 20 minutes on the Nikons.
20 minutes on the Nikons, that's true. And every 20 minutes he had to go around and just hit record.
That was
his job.
I think Joe's married and has a kid.
I don't recall.
I think he does. When I used to use Facebook for personal stuff, I think I saw that Joe had a kid. But that's a blast from the past. Hashtag Joe, you don't have a microphone, if you want to hashtag that, because that's a throwback if you know Joe.
Oh, man.
He was there.
That's a throwback.
And it wasn't his sister, because I remember one time his sister came up to me and said hi at a game. Hi, I'm Joe's sister. I'm serving beer.
Oh, yeah, they both work there, yeah.
Yeah, they're these beer people. Joe's like, beer?
Yeah.
Beer? Light beer? Light beer, that's...
Cracker Jacks.
That's $12.50.
Yeah, that's $47 for a 6-ounce beer.
Cash only, please.
Yeah,
cash only. Oh God, Joe, that was crazy. I forgot to mention that. But
that's funny. I remember you Instagram storied him, and I'm like, is that really Joe? He's still there.
It was really Joe.
That's got to be cool though, working games like that postseason.
I guess. I mean, he's working. Maybe he's making a couple shekels here and there.
I'm just saying, you get to kind of watch the game and you're serving beer and some extra money. Why not?
That's true. He kind of is watching the game and serving beer. Mm-hmm. Slinging beer by the 7th inning. They got to be done. Anyway, why don't we get to what I missed, or we ran out of time last week.
Yes.
Why I don't do the 5-day deal and why it's bullshit. And I do clarify that it's not exactly bullshit, but I don't like how it operates.
I'm just going to say, if I'm buying it, I'm kind of getting a lot of shit for what, $98, whatever it is.
You know, Steven, you can quit right now.
now if I was the creator basically giving away my stuff for free for this 5-day deal, then it's a different story. But as the end user, I think they're kind of getting a nice deal out of it.
For those of you who don't know what the 5-day deal is, every year thousands of photographers and video creators come together to purchase an amazing bundle of high-quality digital tools and resources at an amazing discount while giving back to charity. I fucking hate when people use charity as the impetus for selling products.
Yeah, the selling point, yeah.
I want charity into my pocket. Okay. And just because I do plenty and I don't advertise everything that I do when it comes to the charitable side of it. This site is dedicated to those amazing and creative people. Customers, a 5-day deal bundle from all over the world. It's a tribute to the impact we've had. And it talks about how much money they've raised. The 5-day deal foundation, do not get me started on that. Oh my God. The 5-day deal foundation enables 5-day deal to make the donations to amazing smaller charities around the world that are not part of our featured and voted on charities during the bundle. Ooh, Steven. I gotta question that one. I gotta question that one. See, this is a tough one, and I haven't even gone into what the 5-day deal is yet. But I would like to reach out to them and say, hey, are you paying yourself a salary out of this 5-day deal foundation? Are you paying yourself a salary for 5-day deal? Because you know, like the Susan G. Komen or Susan B. Komen, whatever it is for the breast cancer, is one of the if you donate a lot of money, maybe like 8% of it goes towards the charity and the rest goes towards paying bills, right? Like the people who run the foundation get paid a shit ton of money. So I don't know. I'm not accusing them. I'm saying that that's how that runs in a lot of these things. These people start these foundations, pay themselves $100,000 a year.
I mean, it's basically like a non-profit almost, right? Where you're technically a non-profit, but you're still getting paid a salary.
Forming your own. You're forming your own. So not only are you getting a tax haven by putting money into it, like you're donating money to this, and if it's a nonprofit and it doles out charitable donations.
It's also a nice tax write-off, yep.
Someone is getting paid to operate that foundation. I'd be curious about that, Steven. It's almost like a shebanger. I'd be very curious to see how that all works. But anyway, 5-day deal is every year, and they asked me to do it like once or twice. And
why 5 days, by the way? Let's just get to that first.
Oh, because it runs for 5 days,
Well, of course, but why 5 days?
Because
is there any reasoning behind picking 5 days, or it's just, hey, we're gonna do a 5-day deal? That's what we're calling it.
Maybe 6-day deal was taken on 6daydeal.com.
6 day, 7 day, 8 day. It was all taken.
So I went ahead and screen grabbed the entire website because I figured once the 5-day deal was done that they would take down the offer. Now, a lot of websites do this. A lot of the like Peter Hurley is somebody who does this. F-Stoppers is always promoting this. And I'm sure they make money at it. But I'm not a big fan of these bundles because it devalues my product. It may be a good option for a consumer, maybe once, but you're not going to buy this shit every year because there's a lot of repeats. Like Peter Hurley's art of the headshot or whatever the hell he calls it. The
Perfecting the headshot.
Perfecting the head. He's had that in there every single year. So what are you actually getting out of it year after year? So basically they put together this bundle. On their website it says, fresh bundle every year since 2014.
Is it a fresh bundle though?
Not if Peter's been in it with the same material every year.
Yeah.
10x your photography. 96% off courses and plugins by industry pros. Bundle bundle gone forever. Tuesday, October 18th.
Don't become stagnant. Get new methods, tricks, modes, and inspiration. Challenge yourself and become the photographer you always dreamed of becoming.
Yeah, and put more money into our pockets. $2,200 plus $98 for the 5-day deal only. So
it's not bad.
No, it's not bad if Peter's charging $300 for that headshot.
I just wonder what's Peter making out. You know, how is he making out with selling this for part of a $98 deal? What does he get paid?
5-day deal. I actually just went back into my emails, Steven.
I just wonder how all of that works.
So I have this.
Don't they ask you like every year to contribute?
Jared, we'd love to work with you. I don't know if I can read any of this because it's from an email. If you would connect via phone. Oh, I just ignored them 7 times. Bumping this up to the top of your email box. Good morning.
What products are
you? Yeah.
Bumping
Good morning.
it up to the top.
More details, charity benefits. I hate when they lead with charity benefits. Ooh, let's see. Ooh, 5-day deal. I found the back end. Okay, I found it, Steven. I don't think this is hidden because it's 5daydeal.com/about 5-day deal.
There you go.
How does being a contributing partner benefit me? We are looking for contributing partners with quality products that understand their audience and digital marketing. You can earn up to 75% of every main bundle sold through your link. Contributing partners and their products are introduced
affiliate
to a massive
sales,
it's an affiliate thing. Yeah. We typically see around 7,000 to 20,000 sales paying customers during our 5-day event. Since 2014, we have paid $10 million plus to partners and commissions. Will this be you? ? Our goal for partners is for you to earn a month of income on more from a single 5-day bundle event. Many of our partners achieve this and much more. Every sale we have, some partners earn 6+ figures. This could be you.
Wait, so it's saying 75% of each sale?
Yeah, so if it's $100...
I mean, what if you're only giving away a $50 product and getting $75 towards that every time you sell it, right?
Well, if you sell the bundle for $98, you're going to get roughly $70 or $68 depending on the fees and everything involved.
Sure.
There's a lot of confusing parts. A commission of 50 to 75% per bundle sold through your link. Yeah, I mean, it sounds enticing, and I know there's been photographers who have made money at it, but I haven't wanted to put a product in it because I don't want to devalue that product. Like, I don't want to put the Frono's Photo Guide to Getting Out of Auto in this thing. And let me tell you my reasoning for not wanting to do it. It's not the making the money. It's I'm giving away my users. Because what happens is, what 5-day deal is doing is that they want to use me. They want to use Peter. They want to use all these other people. Yep. Matt Granger. What is Matt Granger going to... What's it say? Find the shot, Matt Granger? Or it should be called Find the Titty because it's all about nudity. I don't even know if it is. Find the best shot in any situation, mostly nude portraiture. Learn how to enter any scenario quickly, identifying shooting angles, and pre-visualize the final shot. I'm sure that's wonderful. What a great product. But there's a ton of different products. My issue is, if I promote the 5-day deal to you, my listeners, my followers, and I hammer it home like everybody else, and you end up using my affiliate link, what happens is they now have your contact information, your email address, so that next year they send out a mass email before I'm able to promote it, or they send out an email at the same time, and their hope is that you buy directly through the 5-day deal. And also they probably have other bundles. They do a video 5-day deal during the year, so then they start marketing to my people. So that if I'm not involved, hold on, Steven, hold your goddamn horses. That means if I'm not involved next year, they're still promoting to you, my people, and I'm not, and I do mean you, my people, and I'm not benefiting from it.
So essentially, you would only make out the first year, and any other year after that, they're going to try and steal the sales away from you. Right?
That's how I perceive it.
Yeah.
That's always how I perceive it, and that's why I don't do it. That's just why I don't do it, because I don't want you, my listeners, my followers, my audience that I've cultivated since 2010 to be shilled to and pushed nonstop, because I guarantee you they probably sell their email list as well. I don't know this for a fact, where they get paid to make promotions. If someone comes around and is like, hey, you've got an email list of 300,000 photographers, we'll pay to reach them. I don't want you guys being burdened by the 5-day deal and their offers. So I've always said no. Am I cutting off my nose to spite my face? The answer is probably yes. I'm probably cutting off my nose to spite my face. I'm even going back here because I have one all the way back to 2013, an email here from them for this. Hi, Jared. I'm running to invite you to participate in the Ultimate Photography Bundle, before it was called the 5-day deal. The bundle... Oh, it does say it runs for 5 days only. Total bundle value products, discount, and bonuses will be over $1,000, and the bundle will be sold for $89. Well over a 90% discount. We would love for you to be included. Frono's Photo Flash Guide DVD, 50% off discount code in the bundle. No. I was like, no. I see names that they've told me that have done it. No, feel free to contact me. And we went back and forth, and they contacted me. Well, I think I told them off at that point. It did. What did I say? This is not something I'm interested in doing. I'm not going to sell someone else's products that I know nothing about. I'm also not going to devalue my product and include it with other people's for only $89. I get you say there is a large social reach, but those numbers do not always convert to sales and many times are bloated. Huh. So I'm still an asshole, Steven. Hashtag Jared's still an asshole.
Still the same old Jared.
9 years later, still an asshole. I hope I haven't gone too off the rails with this, but the other thing that 5-day deal does is they run it for 5 days, and then every time, the deal is over, extended for 12 more hours. And you just see everybody blasting it out. I will not bother you guys with other people's shitty products. That's part of it, is I don't want you getting Matt Granger's product because I don't agree with Matt Granger's teachings. So I don't want you to think that he's teaching something and then I agree with it. That's more about it, because I think I'm right. And I think everybody else is wrong.
I
don't think everybody else is wrong, but let's read some of these products. Perfecting the Headshot with Peter Hurley. That's included. Normally a $300 value. Find the Shot with Matt Granger. $207 crossed out. Shooting Golden Hour Scenes by John Weatherby. Flash Back Volume 2 by Peter Vander.
I don't think we need to go through every single one of these.
Well, Steven, then you can get something dramatic landscape, Photoshop for beginners, 25 easy portrait retouching techniques, cleaning up your mess in Lightroom. My problem is learning to see, a photographer's guide, audio, Steven.
Oh, you need that.
Audio. Sky replacements. I don't like sky replacements. No, I don't see a Matt Klaskowski listed here this time. I don't think he does it, which is interesting. I should ask him why he doesn't do it. Anyway, so my thing is you give people all of this stuff, and it's usually the dredge, the stuff they don't sell themselves very often, so they're going to go ahead and sell it to you. But I think there's going to be a lot of conflicting information. That's my thing. But I mean, it's a lot of value. There really is. They put together a nice bundle. I just don't agree with. I have my ways, and other people have their ways.
Yep.
You got nothing about this, Steven?
I don't really care about it. I mean, I do think it's a decent product for someone buying it for $98, but I also see what you're saying, how the person actually supplying that product kind of gets screwed over, and you don't want to devalue your product like you're saying. And I don't know. I don't care enough to really comment, to be honest.
You have the potential of getting screwed over. Like, we could give them FroPack 1, include it. It's
not Skittles.
It's a $50 value, and it's part of the bundle. They don't really care what you give them because it's about the bundle. It's about selling someone on the fact that there's so much value here that for $98 plus on the back end, there's a $39 bump. If you want to spend more, there's go to the extreme bundle and get and spend $39 more. So they'll sell more, so you can make good money. I could make good money doing it, but my thing is I traded the option for making more money for the reassurance that I'm not selling out my users just for money, and that they end up being marketed to with stuff that I either don't agree with or just would be pissed off if I was getting marketed to myself. Because when they go to sell the video bundle, if I'm not involved in selling the video bundle, I make nothing off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my issue. Good enough, Steven?
Good enough.
All right, fine. You want to get to the other key interesting things that I didn't even mention at the beginning of the episode?
Yes, let's get to the spicy stuff.
Which spice do you want to go with, the Nikon spice or the Sony spice?
I'd say we start off small. Let's go with the Nikon firmware update, right?
Okay, Steven, I'm throwing it to you. Take charge.
So Nikon claims version 3.0, which just came out this week, has nearly 20 new functions and features.
For the Z9.
For the Z9. The one thing I do not like about them calling every single firmware update a 2.0, a 3.0, it's never like a incremental like 2.1.2, or like Canon, for example. They're still on 1.6.2 on the R5 and I think the R6. And there's been numerous pretty big updates in terms of like the overheating fix and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with the R3. They're still on 1 point something, and they gave it that new 195 frames per second RAW feature, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Nikon likes to really hit it hard with marketing and saying it's 3.0, version 3.
That must mean the autofocus got miraculously better, because if they went from version 1 to 2 to 3, then the autofocus has to be better.
But that's where I think it's misleading. Instead of it saying it's 2.1, it's now 3.0, so you think it's a whole generation newer firmware of this amazing autofocus and all that. And I mean, we've tested it out. Kind of seems like the same autofocus for the most part, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, to go from for the original firmware, and then the 2.0 firmware was a big upgrade. It added a lot of features that
I do agree
2.0
was a very big update, yes.
But this they claim that the autofocus is going to be stickier and it's going to stay locked on the subject longer. If something gets in its way, it's not going to be as much of a problem. But you still don't have the same thing that Canon has with all the different cases. Canon's got all the different cases. I'm like, okay, I don't want it to ever be distracted by a foreground element, and it will do it, right? You have all those different options with Canon.
That's true. You can really tweak the autofocus.
So with Nikon, do you have a list of all of the specs, Stephen, or all of the updates?
I have a list of personally what I think are the big updates.
Yeah, hit us with that.
Because again, they say there's nearly 20 new options, and I'm not going to hit you with every single small, tiny update. Anyway, one of the new ones when it comes to video is their new high-res zoom feature when shooting 4K video. It's basically digital zoom during video. It records in 8K full resolution, and then you can digitally zoom in slowly when filming, and you'll maintain that 4K quality when the video is finalized. So that's kind of nice. It's essentially like Sony's clear image zoom. It's kind of like a parfocal zoom without an actual zoom lens needed. So I do like that option. I think that's a fairly big update when it comes to video. You can also adjust the speed of the zoom too, from slower to standard to faster, I think are the actual 3 options in the menu. They also have the high-speed frame capture plus. They're calling it the new C60 mode. That lets you do 60 frames per second in DX mode and gives you 19 megapixel JPEGs. So you get more reach at 60 frames per second. I don't know. I personally, if I really wanted the frame rate, I'd rather shoot 120 frames per second and get that 11 megapixel JPEG. But I guess if you're a birder, it's not bad to have that 60 frames per second really high frame rate, and you're also getting that DX crop on top of that with a decent 19 megapixel JPEG.
Yeah, but it's a JPEG.
I agree.
So I shot the mode, and yeah, it can shoot fast. And I remember, Nikon's like, this is amazing. And I'm like, what's amazing? 195 frames per second RAW. That's amazing.
Or what they already had, which is the 120 frames per second full frame 11 megapixel image. I mean, I don't think C60 really blows me away when you already have C120.
Right.
But again, a nice option if you're a birder, if you need the extra reach, you still need the high frame rate. Not bad to have.
Still need the autofocus to work, though.
Still need the autofocus. Well, speaking of autofocus, they say the low light limit has been extended by half a stop. Users can now have the option to change the color of the focus points to red. They say the detection and tracking of fast-moving animals has been improved when animal is selected in 3D tracking. And then they also say in 3D tracking, focus will less likely shift to a foreground obstacle that momentarily obscures the intended subject, which you kind of talked about. And you had that, I think, happen to you when you were shooting with the 400 with the TC a lot, right? Where like it would almost shift immediately to the foreground object versus the subject you're intended to shoot.
Well, it's so hard to tell with a lot of the Nikon what's right and what's wrong, because a lot of it does miss, right? It's hit or miss.
But we found that the 3D tracking, I feel like, isn't super sticky. Like, yeah, it's initially tracking when you select that 3D tracking point, but then eventually it will lose it, where I feel like Sony and Canon still are really sticky no matter what comes into the frame.
I've had it get stuck on the background a lot. I still see issues with it now, the version 3. The problem for me is the marketing, like you said, with it calling it 3.0. It should have been 2.1.2 or just 2.2. Exactly. Call it 2.2 because they're trying to say that, oh shit, this thing continues to get even better with almost 20 new features, 18 of which don't mean shit.
Exactly. And hey, I do think it's still a worthy firmware update. If you do have a Z9, I would update. I think it's worth it. But it's not a 3.0 update in my opinion.
Well, it's not like the autofocus has miraculously gotten even better. The autofocus is still fine.
I always think back to the day in terms of, naming it 2.0, 3.0 firmware updates, when Canon did the initial firmware update for the 7D, the original 7D. And they gave it like the entire new menu. They gave it all these new shooting functions. It was like a whole new refreshed camera. And they called that 2.0 because it literally almost made it like a 7D Mark II before the 7D Mark II came out. That, to me, is when you should be calling it version 2.0 or version 3.0. And again, when they called it 2.0, they did have some major features in there, so I do think that was a worthy firmware update.
Right.
And
but 3.0 is taking it a little far, because what happens is a lot of the Nikon shooters who don't even own the Z9 are like, see, they're continuing to make it better. The autofocus is absolutely so much better and stickier. And it's not noticeable. It's not like when we talk about the Sony A7R5 in a minute and the AI chip that's in it.
Exactly.
It's not like it's like that.
It's not a brand new dedicated processor just for autofocus.
No, because it's the same camera that it was. Now, it's nice they're bringing new features, as you said. It's really nice that they do that, like the C60 and those different options. But if that actually did RAW, then it would make sense. But JPEG, it's like, cool, guys, you just added it. Instead of 120, it can now do 60.
Well, it's like Canon did that 195 frames per second RAW mode in the R3, and they like silently released that update. They didn't even make a big deal out of it, which I think they should have. Now, granted, it's limited, it's extremely limited in a fraction of a second in shooting speed, but still.
And there's probably only 10,000 cameras out there in the market.
Well, same with the Z9, I would say, right?
There's probably less of the Z9s out in the market. Here's a crazy one. That kid, John Krause, I've talked about in the past, who shoots a lot of space stuff and has a gig out there with, I think, a company called Polaris or something. He was in the Vomit Comet, the one that does the parabolas, the ups and downs, and does the zero G flights. And he had the Z9 on there, and he said something on his Instagram, and I'm going to paraphrase it, that he likes the quality he gets from his Nikons. Of course he does, but he did run into issues with the autofocus not doing what it needed to do and being suboptimal for the situation he was in, because he's floating in zero G basically, so he's spinning around and the subjects are moving and he's moving, and that's where you would rely on the autofocus to just point and lock onto the subject and stay there. And he wasn't seeing that as well as he should have seen it with the Z9. We know that there's limitations. Nikon knows that the Z9 is not as good as Canon and Sony for their focusing tracking. It's good enough. It's the best Nikon they've ever made in terms of autofocus, especially for mirrorless cameras. And we've said it time and time again. It will continue to evolve. They just need to get there. Just like Canon needed to quickly evolve to get there to beat Sony. And at this point, they have.
And it's a shame that they wanted to make a big deal out of this 3.0 firmware, but it's definitely getting overshadowed by this new A7R5 announcement. Happened to be the same exact day.
Yes, that's a whole nother ball game. They all release things at the same time.
Always the same time. It's so weird how camera manufacturers tend to release their major gear in like the same week. Why?
That's why we can't, we have to pick and choose what videos we're going to launch.
We really do.
I know MKBHD will go ahead and launch multiple videos in a day, and it works for him, but we know that the algorithm from YouTube will hurt the release of the first video when you release the second video, at least in our experience.
Yep. And just in the past, 2 weeks, we've had the ZV-1F, now the A7R5, and then the firmware 3.0, which we're not going to do videos on both in the same day. That might be a Photo News Fix mention, but that's it.
Exactly. And then with Fix, we've got to figure out when we're going to release stuff. That's the crazy part.
We have to then push that back, if the gear gets announced the same day. And yeah, it's a lot of, there's always scheduling conflicts with video releases for us.
There are. So do you want to go right into the A7R5 that has been long rumored and long waited for, and Sony Alpha Rumors got wrong?
Actually, they got pretty much right.
Well, they did by the end, but not at the beginning.
Yeah.
They were just like, it's this.
Rumor.
It's going to be around this.
1 million megapixel sensor.
If you say
global
around,
shutter,
then they were like 100 megapixels. So they were all over the place until they weren't.
Until they actually got a credible source. No, I'm kidding. I didn't.
No, my favorite part is they've got content that we don't even have when we're making the videos for this stuff. We don't even have the graphics that they end up getting before the shit's even announced.
Well, when they leaked the initial accurate specs, that was probably a week before we actually found out and had the initial presentation for the camera, right?
Yeah.
So they have someone really deep on the inside that's leaking this stuff.
You know who leaks it, Steven, right?
It's got to be camera stores and stuff like that, people that have...
Camera stores.
Camera stores, yeah.
The big camera stores, generally someone on the inside, like they get this information because they need to prepare their website. They also need to prepare their orders. They need to do all of this stuff. A lot of the times it comes out of Europe.
I was going to say,
or
overseas,
Asia.
Yep.
It's just one of those things. It's one of those things you deal with. But let's go into it. Are you happy with it? What do you think? We've had it. We used it.
So
what do you think?
Well, I do want to say when we released that RAWtalk, I think 2 weeks ago at this point, when we speculated what the initial specs were going to be, we actually knew we were getting a phone call that day about an hour after we recorded the RAWtalk and getting the real deal specs. But we wanted to record the episode and completely guess what we thought it would be. Again, we did not actually know what they were going to be, and we wanted to make sure we recorded it before we actually knew what they were going to be.
Yeah, because we don't want them coming back and being like, how did you guess all these settings right? Oh, well, you had a phone call. We'll be like,
yeah.
Well, actually, we recorded it. Here's the time. I made sure to send them an email to say, hey, just so you know, we're recording a podcast where we guess the specs. So if there's any overlap, these are all guesses because we haven't had our call.
Yeah.
We haven't had our call yet.
And I think they were pretty lucky guesses. For the most part, we got a lot of the specs right. It was kind of just logical based on Sony's past. You know, it's getting all the incremental updates from the other bodies like the A7 IV and just adding them to essentially the A7R IV body. So this has been 3 years in the making. It's been 3 years since the A7R IV has been out, and they finally released the A7R5. And to me, it's basically they took the A7 IV body, merged it with the A7R IV body, and kind of kept most of the specs the same internally in terms of sensor, ISO, all that kind of stuff.
Do you have the specs, or you want me to hit those up?
I do. So
all right, go for it.
Same sensor, same 61 megapixel BSI Exmor-R sensor, same as the predecessor, but now it is tweaked with the most updated Bionz XR processor, which they're saying it's the best resolution performance ever among alpha cameras, and it'll give you an 8 times greater processing performance.
We call that propaganda, Steven.
Basically, they say it's going to resolve more detail out of this sensor. So will you actually notice the difference?
You'll never notice the difference.
Probably not unless you're zooming in 1,000,000,000%.
I just want to say Sony is very good with marketing. They like to. It's like Apple. They'll name everything. They'll talk about it in such a way, and they try to get us as the creators to use these terms to go out. It's kind of like the 5-day deal trying to use us. Sony is trying to use us. All the companies do this, but Sony does it more than everybody else, where they want you to say these terms. Oh, Bionz XR processor, it's 8 times more resolution power. And so what you will hear are other creators out there spitting back and regurgitating the same bullet points that they give instead of rewording it and making it their own.
Well, and speaking of some of the bullet points they give, I mean, like, for example, they're calling it a dedicated AI processor that they now have for their autofocus, for their subject detection. And they're saying it uses deep learning technology. Now, this is also what Canon used to refer to when they talked about their R3 subject detection. They used to say it was deep learning tech. So essentially, to me, this is them catching up with Canon, where they have torso detection, head detection. You can spin around in a circle and it still knows it's a human being. They're calling it human pose estimation, where it's basically knowing from the skeletal layout that this is a human being, and they know where the head is.
Question? Are you saying it has X-ray?
Oh, yeah. And that was a good question. I thought it was actually an interesting question because the way they described it, I'm like, are you saying it sees the skeleton of a human?
Exactly. It's got bones.
But they're trying to say, like, this isn't Skynet. It's not actually learning as it's being used. It's just
using a database.
An initial database that hasn't changed, they said. It just now is more intelligent with that database.
Well, let me talk about the real world.
Yeah.
When I took this out, I shot 3 things. You should have seen the video by now. I shot our buddy Gloss Black painting a mural.
Yep.
Easy situation. That was the first thing that I shot. Then I went and shot soccer, and then in the studio, and I just activated the camera again, Steven. I just activated the search camera on the Link 360, Insta360. But when I went and photographed Gloss Black, he was in shadow, but I noticed right away that the focus was much better, much tighter in terms of face detect, head detect, body detect. It now put a bigger greener box that expanded when it found the body. So it did that, and it did less of the lock-on tracking where I would lock it on and it would just track to whatever it locked to.
It actually knew it was a subject, a human being.
It actually knew it was a subject. It did a much better job, especially with wider angle lenses, being able to find the eye at a wider distance. On the flip side, the Canon is still better, in my estimation, from using it, especially especially shooting the Phillies recently with the A1 and the R3, I know that the R3 autofocus is much better, or is better still than what this AI processor thing is bringing. But it does work. It absolutely is the best focusing version of a Sony camera yet. And I think it's pretty evident that this processing technology will find its way into all future generations.
Down to every single other alpha model.
And maybe it will be better in the A1 II, or whatever the A1 Mark II, or whatever they call it.
Processor that comes out after the Bions XR.
Right. They may be able to take better advantage of it. So, yes, Sony did do a better job of getting it closer to Canon, which was always Canon trying to get closer to Sony because everybody was playing chase. Now, Sony's playing catch up to Canon, and I still feel that the Canon is slightly better.
Well, what I didn't like is when they were describing this new AI processor, this new dedicated chip, and what it does, and they were basically saying that this is the only camera that kind of does this on the market, and I'm like, this is what Canon does already. They already have the human head detection, the torso, all of that. When you turn around 360, it still stays locked onto the head, or then switch to the eye, depending if it can see it or not. They just tried to basically say that nothing else can do this, but it can. Like, the R3 already does all of this. So I do think they are catching up, like you said. And when it does hit the A1 Mark II or the A9 III, whatever is coming next in terms of the high frame rate camera, it's probably going to be next level, because I'm sure it's going to be even better than it is now. Faster, new processor, all of that. We'll see.
It's absolutely a worthy upgrade for someone who wants that better autofocus.
Now, back to the other specs of the camera, I do think on paper, unfortunately, I think people will be disappointed because it does kind of seem like the same camera for the most part, with minor updated tweaks, like giving it just the A7 IV body and the S&Q dial, the still movie dial up top, the heat dissipating structure, the longer unlimited record times, the bigger joystick. I don't know. I mean, I do like that they have now the small, medium, large, RAW selections with oversampling. So if you want to shoot 26 megapixels, you can do that full frame from oversampled from a 61 megapixel sensor. So I think that's really interesting if you're running low on, file size and data storage.
Or you could just crop your image and have all the data.
I'm not saying for reach. I'm just saying if you want to have a 26 megapixel file still in that full frame sensor.
I got you.
But it gets the new tile menu structure from the FX30.
Which I didn't even use at all when I shot stills.
Didn't like it, right?
I didn't like it because I still had to go into the menu, then click on tile, then go through the tile menu. The truth of the matter is, with so many customizable function buttons on the Canon, on the Sonys, I really don't need the tile menu for stills. Up top they put the record button where the one button was.
Where the C1 button was, yeah.
C1 used to be. So now that's the record button. I just remapped that back to ISO, which is what I used to have for the C1.
And that's one thing I love about Sony is you can literally map out any button to any feature on the camera, where Canon is still very limited on what you can map to each button. Same with Nikon. Now, Nikon I think is a little better, but Sony will literally give you any of the function menu, which essentially is the Q menu from the Canon. Like you said, it's not really needed, the tile menu. It's almost like too much customization at this point.
Steven, even when I set up the camera, you're like, did you turn this off? Did you turn this off? And I'm like, fuck, I didn't even realize that was there, because I hate the menu system. Well, so I despise it.
You had to shoot JPEG because we don't have a RAW converter just yet. So I wanted to make sure noise reduction was turned off. And it's something you don't even think about because typically, obviously, you're always shooting RAW. And unfortunately, it was turned on, but it still was fine.
I shot RAW plus JPEG. I shot both, so I had the both.
I'm saying you can only open the JPEGs.
The JPEGs are fine, but fine isn't good enough in comparison to the RAW.
Of course.
When you look at the JPEGs, you're like, yeah, smoothing is being done here, and I don't like that. I want the noise and I want the grain.
You want the sharpness and detail.
Right. It's the sharpness that is most important.
And back to some of the other specs that they have, again, on paper, it's kind of the same. Like they have the 10 frames per second mechanical, which really is 6 frames per second if you're shooting uncompressed or lossless compressed. So it's a very slow camera that I wouldn't recommend for sports or really any fast-moving subjects. What I do really like about this camera is they gave it a brand new 4-axis multi-angle touchscreen, a 3.2-inch 2 million dot screen. So it's finally a pretty awesome screen on a Sony body, which is very rare.
Not the screen, the movement part. Remember that.
Correct, but I will say the resolution has been upped from the 1.4 in the old A7R4, and it's a 3.2-inch screen versus 3-inch, which they usually give the Sonys. But I do like that it's now vari-angle for, say, vlogging or something, and the fact that it's tilting for photography, which is what you prefer.
Yeah, I prefer the tilting, but I think they did a good job. I think they did a good job because even when you flip it out to the side, it's lined up straight with the back of the camera or the top of the camera, which I always say that Canon has got wrong because Canon doesn't line it up straight. It's still on an angle,
definitely
which
skewed,
sucks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But this is definitely good when you want to shoot verticals and you want to get down low. You can pull it out. Not your penis, but the lens, Stephen.
And I would say the other big upgrade for this, that again will hopefully come to future alpha models, is the IBIS mechanism has finally been updated to now have 8 stops of compensation, which typically it was 5 or 5.5. And to me, it was the worst stabilization out of all cameras. There would still always be a micro jitter of some sort, especially when shooting videos. And that's even on top of like an OSS lens with the IBIS in combination. So this 8 stops, they're saying it's not a dual setup where you have to have a lens that has OS paired with the IBIS mechanism. They're saying you can even use their 50 1.2 GM lens, which has no IS, and it will still get 8 stops of stabilization. So I'm really curious how that'll work in a real world environment. I didn't get to shoot that much with it besides a static shot of you with video in the studio. I still haven't been able to like do run and gun and run around with you and to really see how that stabilization is. But if on paper 8 stops of stabilization, if that's real, that does sound pretty awesome.
Yeah, I got nothing to add to the stabilization part.
And then video-wise, they're now doing 8K cropped, a very slight 1.2x crop, but you are getting a full pixel readout, and that'll do up to 24p. That's what we shot the entire preview in, and I thought it actually looked really nice in S-Log 3. I mean, that's very similar to what Canon does, because you have to remember, like with the R5, you're getting normally a DCI 8K video clip, which is, I forget the actual aspect ratio, but it's wider. And when you're shooting regular UHD, it's essentially cropping in kind of the same amount, almost like a 1.2x crop. So you're kind of still getting a decent crop. But video-wise, I think it looks great. I still wouldn't shoot regular 4K with it up to 60p. It does full pixel readout, but it does do binning in those modes. You have to shoot Super 35 to have that 6.2K oversampling up to 30p. So you're kind of limiting this camera to either shooting 8K full frame or up to 24p or shooting 4K Super 35, which I always prefer full frame, of course.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a minor leagues. They're proving what they can do for future models.
Yes.
The big question is, and we've made a comparison video that will be out at some point, which is trying to say, if you have an A7R4, do you need to upgrade to the A7R5? And for the most part, for most people, the answer is no. But if you've got money to spend and you're a pro, you can absolutely do that. Sell your A7R4, get the A7R5, get the new autofocus tech, especially if you're doing portraits, if you are doing some sorts of moving subjects, it's going to come in handy. You'll see an instant difference. You absolutely will.
I just think that 6 frames a second is definitely going to limit you if you're doing any type of action photography.
That makes no sense still. The fact that
61 megapixels, but with the new Bion's XR processor, and by the way, it has dual CF Express Type A card slots now, you would think the buffer and the processor combined would let you do 15 frames. I don't know, just a higher frame rate.
Look, if Canon can squeeze out 12 frames a second with the mechanical shutter, and yes, it's 45, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to do something similar on the Sony front. I get there's data limitations and all of that, but there's no reason they can't move that data. It's probably a slow readout from the sensor, because with the A1, you could do 30 frames a second at 50 megapixels. You can do it.
Yeah. Is the A1, is the buffer still kind of low?
No, you got to think, Stephen, at 30 frames a second. No, there's this buffer on the left-hand side in the viewfinder that shows how many shots are left.
Yeah.
I mean, if you outrun that, you're just smashing that button.
Because I feel like with the other Sonys, there's always been a little bit of a buffer issue. Like if I'm really holding it down and I can only shoot for how long until it's slowly writing to the cards and locking the camera up.
Well, at this point, you have faster cards. It's not going to be a problem. I don't outrun the A1, and if you just give it 2 seconds, everything's back to normal.
Which then it just, again, why can't I get a faster frame rate with the new A7R5?
I don't know.
That's why on paper, it kind of looks like the same camera with very minor tweaks, mainly being, again, the video, the IBIS mechanism, the flip-out rotatable screen, the AI chip. They have the new EVF passed down from the A7 IV and all the other cameras at this point. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of taking a little bit of each latest alpha camera and creating this one new camera.
Yup.
And it's about $4,000. You know, we're looking at basically the same price as the R5, a little under $4,000. We'll see.
I think it's a holdover camera, but also it's a proving ground for the future.
My question is, you got the A7R4, that's $3,000 roughly. You know, it's almost $1,000 less.
Yeah,
do you go with that, or
no? The autofocus in that thing is garbage.
But what if you're just shooting portraiture? You know,
nude portraiture, Mac Ranger. What
exactly?
No. I don't know that I'd go with the A7 IV. I'd rather have
R4.
the 61 mega. No, I'd rather not go with the A7 IV. Oh, did you say R4?
I said R4, the old model.
Shit, there's too many numbers and too many R's and too many 4s. I didn't realize.
I'm saying you're saving nearly $1,000 if you go with the predecessor.
Right. Okay, not a big deal either way. I just still like to buy the latest and greatest as much as possible. Sure. But if you want to save $1,000 and put that in the glass, or buy one used from someone, it's not a bad option to get yourself into a 61 megapixel camera. It's not like the camera is obsoleted by any stretch of the imagination. You can get great landscapes, you can get great portraiture, you can get great action. It's going to get the job done. The colors are fantastic. I used that camera for the entire Bernie book, basically.
And I do like now, again, that they're giving you that 8K mode if you want to shoot video. So I feel like the A7R4 really limited you with video features. It was very more of a still focused camera, and rightfully so, with it being a 61 megapixel camera. And you really had to shoot in Super 35 to get decent video out of that thing. But now at least you have that full frame mode, and you have the regular 4K binning mode too if you want. So it's a decent hybrid, but I don't know.
So it's not a terrible thing that Sony has done. People have been waiting a long time for this. Are they going to be disappointed? Well, the people that will never own it will be disappointed because they're always disappointed. They always think that it should be the latest and greatest and the best thing since sliced bread, and that every 2 years it should be the newest and best thing ever. And that's not the case. It's good. It's a nice upgrade. It gets the job done. It's not for me because I shoot Canon now.
And I think Sony has always shocked us in the past with being at the forefront of this photo technology, where now you almost have Canon or Nikon introducing these newer technologies that are also mind-blowing, and Sony's kind of like giving you these incremental updates and showing you what the future is going to be like, but not giving you, we're going to have amazing global shutter, boom, in a brand new camera.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do. They've hit us with the A1 before.
I want to see what the A1 Mark II does, because that A1 blew us all out of the water.
It did. I'm still picking up ones from the ground, from all the ones that were in the box that they sent us.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
they had like one confetti.
Exactly. Anyway, got a message from a kid, and by a kid I mean a college student who I generally would ignore, but he did drop that he went to Rowan, which is Steven's alma mater. And so I was like, well, I'll read it. And he had some questions for us. So Steven's going to chop up some of his audio just so you can get a feel and a taste for it. And I just thought it was kind of cool to have a user submitted audio question. And maybe in the future, we will ask you for some user audio submitted questions. Steven, roll that footage. And by footage, I mean audio.
Hey, Jared. Just want to say thank you once more for taking the time and answering some of these questions I have for my class project. My topic is short form content taking over social media and forcing creators and content creators to adapt to grow their brand. I have 7 questions for you. Feel free to jump off and go in any direction that you feel is best to answer the question, or if you have any personal experiences or outside of experiences that you'd like to share that would help me, that'd be awesome as well. So for my first question, how has short form content restricted artist creativity when considering how to grow the brand? And do you happen to have examples from yourself or others you've talked to as well?
All right. Sorry, Brian. I didn't. I should have written your name down. But hey, I figured it out. I think we've talked about a lot of these things already. I think short form content is not restricting artists. I actually think it's giving people more opportunities to reach more people. When you jump onto the bandwagon early on in certain social platforms, you may get more reach early, and then they start to dial it down, and you don't get as much reach as it becomes more popular. I saw this when Facebook Live did Facebook Live video, and we had a beta invite. We would have over 1,000 people watching live because no one else was going live. Then when everybody could go live, we had like 80. So it kind of made it worthless.
Did we stream RAWtalk to Facebook Live as well? I think we did both, didn't we?
No, I don't think we ever did. We just did it right to YouTube. I thought
we did initially. We did YouTube and Facebook simultaneously.
I don't think we ever did that.
Oh, I thought we tried it.
I just know I did Ustream from episode 1.
Is that still around, Ustream?
I think they got absorbed by someone. But I paid good money for that Ustream software so we could go live back in the day in 2010.
Wow.
That was not easy. We lost connection quite a bit.
Even in 2017 when we were doing RAWtalk Live, or 2018, whatever it was, that was still kind of early on with live streaming too. Or high quality live streaming, I should say. Now,
second question.
Go ahead. Regarding the restricting artists with short form content, the only thing I think with short form content is you have to hit them right off the bat with something very intriguing in the first few seconds to capture someone's attention. And I do think that is a little bit restricting someone's creativity, because you almost have to clickbait the crap out of it, or thumbnail the crap out of it, or do something crazy the first few seconds to capture someone's attention.
Yep.
For my second question, what changes have you noticed in the content producing space, and how have you evolved with those changes over time?
Well, things are always evolving and changing. I started in 2010 with making videos that were only 5 minutes or less because that's all my camera let me do. I also didn't chase trends. I tried to be a trendsetter. I tried to do things that other people weren't doing, and then people started to emulate and try to copy me, and then fell off by the wayside and disappeared. I'm in it for the long term. When Steven came around, we upped the quality of the content, better editing, better pizza, Papa John's, better editing, because we needed certain things. It just got better when Steven came along and tightened it up because it was better quality. But the changing, everything evolves. I also think you go from a time where shitty content, shitty quality is okay, to then better quality is more important. And then it all comes full circle that people start doing lame, bad content and not good quality. And then other people don't care. Like TikTok, you could put up a piece of shit video and it does really well, or you could spend time and polish something and it doesn't do as well because it's not as raw.
Third question is, with short form content becoming so popular, do you feel that creators not so much are lazy, but have sacrificed their quality for their quantity to increase their production? And is this something you see as being able to get away from when you're producing your own content?
So the whole quality over quantity. You know me, I'm a stickler for quality, and I would rather put out one polished video instead of 5 filler videos for the week on YouTube, for example. When we started taking on shorts a few months ago, we kind of we upped that production value and still did a very interesting short where it had like almost a script to it, a storyline to it.
It absolutely had a script because I wrote the words.
Exactly. It had a script to it. It was thought out. It was edited. There was post-production, pre-production, all of that. It wasn't just a random clip of someone doing something stupid on the street and you happen to get lucky and record something crazy and upload to TikTok. That was our take on shorts.
Noah falling in the street.
Unfortunately, it's hit or miss. It's very hard to grab someone's attention. And we did with the first one we did, which has 500,000 views or more, right?
Oh, it's almost 800,000 on YouTube. It just shot up again.
And on Instagram, it has about 500,000, I believe, right?
I think it has 600,000 or 700,000 on Instagram.
So we thought that was kind of the way to go. And we tried a couple more and they just kind of fell flat. And I thought they were very interesting shorts.
They are, but if you can't get it into the zeitgeist, if you can't get it out to people, then it kind of defeats the purpose. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating when that happens. But I don't think so. So here's the take. After seeing that we spent the amount of time that we spent on certain reels, and then I'm like, well, it did like 30,000 views. I'm like, I can do an unboxing holding my phone in front of me and filming the thing coming out of the box, and it does 100,000.
Yeah.
So it depends on the type of content that I'm trying to push out there and what I want to do. So sometimes lower quality is perfectly fine because it's more raw, it's more real. And then other times we can step up the game if we want to step the game up.
And I think with that initial video that we did about the impossible shot with the bat being broken and the ball contacting the bat, we started off that short with literally the first 3 seconds, the bat cracking and talking about how we got the impossible shot. So I do think whether you're into sports, baseball, or photography, you're going to stay locked on when you're mindlessly scrolling through a feed. That was the whole point. And we tried to emulate that in the next few that we did, but it just didn't really work out.
My fourth question, as Instagram clearly favors videos over photos that we've seen time and time again, how has that impacted the photography community and impacted the art of photography in general?
I don't care. to be honest with you. I think it's over exaggerated and overblown. I think this whole idea of, hey, speaking of that, Stephen, have you heard anything about Vero lately?
No, I have not.
Have people given up on giving a shit about that? The real photo network?
It's the flavor of the week, man.
It is. And I've seen like photos can still do well on Instagram. Certain photos do well and other ones just don't do as well. So I think it's still, Instagram was never about, growing a following. It was sharing your everyday and sharing pictures here with some filters on them. And then it became about art. Then it became about marketing. And then it became about really bad stuff, just terrible things like makeup artists and shit like that. But it is what it is. I don't begrudge them. They utilize this product to benefit them. I still think that YouTube is a better place so you can generate more revenue as a business than on Instagram. So I think, yes, they favor video right now. And has it impacted the photo community? No. Well, hold on. In some ways, yes. Go ahead, Stephen.
When you say has it impacted the photo community, I mean, we have seen the death of major photocentric platforms like 500px. I mean, I haven't heard about them in a minute. Flickr, what happened to them? I mean, even something like Tumblr, which was more porn.
Well, all of that.
But still, it started off more photo related.
Right, but that just says people aren't that interested in photo communities more so than anything, though Instagram came by after all of those things and grew to be bigger.
But I think that's why Instagram has pivoted more towards video, which to me is more popular among everybody.
Yeah, because they just went with...
It's moving pictures. That's all it is. It's the same thing, just moving.
Exactly. So I don't think that, how has that impacted the photography community and impact the art of photography? I think it's just that what people think art of photography are likes. So they're chasing likes and equate that with good, right? With art. And it doesn't mean just because it got likes that it's good.
My fifth question is, on that same topic of social media, what other media sites have done this that you've seen? And how has it become a trend? And how has also that impacted the community? And what can we do to change that?
Well, yeah, we just talked about that a lot of them have shifted away from photos by themselves to shift over to moving pictures or audio or videos or shorts. It just shows you what works.
My sixth question is, do you feel that people are missing out on things that you go over in your gear videos that are so detailed because they want shorter videos that just explain the basics? And would you ever find yourself gravitating towards a shorter video and shorter content to possibly compete with any competition that you may find? Do you think that the content you make will still drive views because of how detailed you are in your videos and all the explanations you give for it?
This is a good question. And the answer is we are not going to dumb our shit down to middle America or people that can't sit through a fucking video. We are going to do quality. There was another YouTube channel out there a bunch of years ago that shot up to 1 million followers quickly, and they now don't get any views. Their whole selling point was
short videos.
We do short videos so that you can get through and get to shooting, so you don't have to wait so long. But there's only so much you can deliver in 4 to 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. If anything, our videos are getting longer instead of shorter.
Yeah. So we're not chasing the trends. If it's quality content, we're going to put it out. We're not going to be like, oh, this should only be 4 minutes because people have no attention span. The truth is, people have an attention span when you give it quality content. The Bernie video, even though people weren't interested fully in it, they still watched the damn thing. Photo News Fix, 70% watch through rate. Everybody that starts it
Granted, we
it.
do have to clickbait those types of videos very heavily to get the views in the first place.
Yes, we do.
Now, I think we're more on the evergreen type of content, like the user guides, the general tutorials, the gear reviews, the stuff that we know will live on for years and years to come, like lens reviews, for example. That's going to live on for the next 5, 6, 7 years until that next generation lens comes out. So people are going to search for it. It might not get 100,000 views off the rip, but the first week it might get, 10, 20, 30,000 views.
Yeah.
You look back in a year, it's got 500,000. So,
so
that's kind of our play. Where the fix will stay topical throughout the week and get that almost 100,000 that same week. It's kind of a mix of both worlds.
Right. We know the length of videos. We know that user guides are going to be an hour and a half long. We know that Photo News Fix is going to be 5 to 7 minutes. We know that a preview video could be 30 minutes. We try to keep the lens reviews under 20, hopefully 15.
They used to be 5.
They used to be, but I couldn't deliver every piece of information.
I think they're way more informative now, and I'd rather them be over detailed than dumbed down.
Exactly. So we stick with quality content regardless of how the internet shifts, because we've been doing it since 2010, putting out content, and I think quality still rules.
And I still think people, not that they prefer long form content on YouTube, but I don't think they mind watching something longer, like 20, 30 minutes. Now, I still prefer that sweet spot of the 10 to 15 minutes where I can watch it quickly on my lunch break or even in between editing, but I still think people will watch something like 30 minutes. When you get into the hour, that's a little rough. Then you got to actually sit down for something like that.
Yep.
My last question is, with the content landscape rapidly changing, is short form content here to stay? Will we get even shorter? Will we get something longer? How do you feel that the content producing landscape will change, let's say, in the next 2 to 4 years? I mean, it's only really been around for 7 to 10, maybe a little bit longer than that, majority of my life, and it's hard to tell where it will go, but what do you think will happen in those next short 4 years? Thank you so much again, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
So I don't think content's getting shorter because TikTok is going to go longer.
It's getting
TikTok
longer.
Is
Stories
going
are getting longer on
form.
Instagram.
90 seconds for stories, which is insane because now we're doing more stories instead of reels.
And I would say we started with Vine as one of these type of video apps, and we're 7 seconds.
Was it 7?
6 or 7, whatever it was. But
maybe it was 7.
I think it was 7. And that was obviously very limiting, 7 seconds. And now you got the TikTok, which is 30 to 60, right?
Well, no, TikTok can do 4 minutes or 10 minutes. You can still go long now.
When it initially came out is what I meant.
Everything was, I remember like 15 seconds was the jam.
Was it 15?
I may have been, but I wasn't on TikTok super early.
Well, it was Musical.ly at first, right? And then it became TikTok. But yeah, I feel like it's almost slowly getting to that longer form content.
It is.
Ironically.
They're trying to go after YouTube.
Yep.
And I don't think
And YouTube's trying to go after TikTok.
Well, and I don't think they should, as I've said before.
Yep.
So the landscape is always changing. I don't think short form is here to stay. I think YouTube will recognize the error in their ways and realize that it's hurting them more than helping them, because all people do are they're just mindlessly dribbly swiping their thumb up to the next, and they're not building a community where that is more effective if you build a community.
Well, and what I've seen recently, if I go into my Discover tab on Instagram, I swear it's half-naked women. It's all these half-naked women because those views get an insane, because obviously that stops dudes in their tracks while they're mindlessly scrolling.
That is sexist like last week, Stephen.
I'm just saying.
It could stop women too. Women like
or
men.
Women
Like women too.
Teach their own. But that's what I keep seeing is constant, women being half naked. I don't know if you come across that at all, but.
Well, as of late, thankfully, I haven't been seeing a lot of religious content. I would be okay with half naked religious women. I would be like, hey girl, what's up? Jesus loves you. But I stopped. I turned off recommendations, right? You could do that on Instagram.
Like when I'm scrolling through my stories, for example, every once in a while it'll give you like 4 reels that it recommends. And I swear it's girls half naked. And I don't understand why. It's not like I search for that or even watch it. It just happens to show up on my feed. Maybe it's because I'm a 34-year-old male and that's the way the algorithm, that's what it caters to. It knows that and feeds it out. Are you looking at a half naked woman right now?
Well, I follow her.
Yeah, there you go.
She's doing cheerleading
and
stuff.
How many views does that video have?
She's a dancer. It just went up 49 minutes ago.
And it's got 3.8 million likes.
Yeah. Well, let's see. She actually doesn't get that many views. How many followers does she have? She only has 108,000 followers.
All right, so let me go
She's a singer, dancer, actress, teen model.
I'm going on my Instagram right now. If I go to my search tab, my Discover tab, actually, it's a lot of Blink-182, actually.
Yeah, so thankfully... Oh, I haven't
actually, this one caters to me a lot more than normal. Usually it's just random. I get a lot of... what's her name?
I think they're getting better.
Billie Eilish, too.
Yeah?
It's weird. It's really weird.
I think it's getting better and better that they're doing it, because I'm getting, I get bowling stuff.
Yeah,
I get
this week actually makes sense to what I'm looking at right now.
yeah, maybe the change has come in and it's for the better.
Good, because before it was just always random videos that made no sense to what I actually usually like.
The worst is when it's the 13-year-old girl. You're like, wait a second. Or the 12 or 11-year-old. You're like, well, they're not old enough. And you look and they have like 112 followers with 20,000 views on this thing. You're like, how does this get out into the world?
Exactly.
But to get back to the question, no, I don't think content will continue to get shorter. I think the people that make quality content will still survive, and the people that chase the algorithm and just chase playing a game are going to be flash in the pan and die out. Very few will make their way through. Like King Batch, he made his way from Vine all the way to hugeness, and he's one of the few who was able to do that. There's always a handful, like the Logan brothers, right?
Yep.
Didn't they
came
start
from
with Vine?
Yep.
So there's always going to be the few that can break through, but the majority are going to fall away because they're just copiers.
Agreed.
Steven,
Yo.
I think we've come to the end of this episode.
Let's wrap it up.
We've got a lot to catch you up on when we get back in another week to a new episode. We'll explain so much stuff. So much will be explained and unlocked. Hashtag unlock the fro.
Unveil what's behind the curtain.
What's behind the curtain, Steven? The phone number, 313-710-9729. You can give us Texie McTechtersons. Be sure to put those hashtags in the YouTube videos when you hear them or see them. Tell us what episode of RAWtalk podcast it came from so we know where it came from. And other people know so that we can use you like 5 Day Deal uses me. Well, not actually me. And I say, in my opinion, all of this stuff so that I don't get sued. No, but really, that is my opinion. I can share my opinion. Well, not if I share my own opinion and
in my opinion,
I'm not stating it. I'm not stating it as fact. I'm giving you what I think it is.
Yeah.
That's what I think it is. Anything you want to add before you go, Steven?
That's it. Like you said, next week we'll have a lot to say, but for now, we'll keep our lips sealed.
Our lips are sealed. What song is that? My lips are sealed. Who does a lips are sealed song?
I got nothing.
Damn, there's someone who does a sealed lips song, and I don't remember. It's not Avril. Can you look this up? Let's look this up, because it's not these dancing Jews from a bunch of weeks ago.
The Go-Go's, Our Lips Are Sealed?
Sealed song. Really?
I don't know. I don't know.
Our lips are sealed. How does that go? Sing it to me, Steven.
I just said I don't know.
Hold on. I'm getting an ad here on YouTube as I try to listen to it. God, I hate these ads. I don't know. Maybe it is Our Lips Are Sealed. I don't know, Steven. I'm going to wrap it up. I've had enough. Thank you for joining us, Steven.
Thank you.
Thank everybody else for joining us. This has been RAWtalk episode number 22. And that's it. Jared, PolinFronosPhoto.com. See ya.
Peace.
Bye, Steven.
Bye.
No, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. That's uncalled for. Goodbye.